Chinese nationals are celebrating right now. They're referring to this attacker, Tetsuya Yamagami, as a hero, Geeta.
Absolutely disturbing. Absolutely disturbing because no anti-national activity or an act of assassination and an act of terrorism should be considered good. No individual who's taken up arms against a leader should be considered a hero. But China is doing that because of Shinzo Abe's policies. He was very, very strict on the extreme communist groups. He was very, very clear on his position on China. He was also absolutely clear on how to move forward in containing China, curtailing Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. And that's why it has been considered a visionary, somebody who looked at how China needs to be contained at a time, in an era, in a time when other countries were rather reluctant to take on China. He did that, and that's why the hate that you see for Shinzo Abe coming from the Chinese is because of the kind of stand and positioning of Japan back then when he was Prime Minister, and his own political positioning when it comes to China. Having said that, the kind of messaging that we're seeing on social media does not bode well for China in terms of how China or these quarters of these people from China look in terms of celebrating an attack. That certainly should not be acceptable. We do not know what the reaction of the administration would be because this is on social media and the Chinese social media, Weibo, it's not on other platforms, but we do know that the Chinese, although Twitter is banned in China, the Chinese are on Twitter. So again, we'll have to wait to see that space as well as to what the Chinese are doing. But certainly a celebration in China amongst certain quarters is not does not go down well for China in terms of China's own image. Now, these are people who have their own identities on social media. This is not a government mouthpiece per se. We'll again have to wait and see how the government mouthpieces in China are going to look at this news of Shinzo Abe being attacked and targeted. And when that happens, you'll see what China's view on this incident is. For now, expect maybe a condemnation or a news such as other world leaders have put out or are putting out by China as well. But certainly the China-Japan rivalry and animosity can be seen even with such a grim news of a leader being attacked, with celebrations on the other side of
so this is truly below the belt, and you know, this is a question of humanity, and you're seeing this kind of a horrifying attack that everyone across the world is condemning. You've got Chinese nationals on their social media platform Weibo actually celebrating, calling this attacker a hero, completely uncalled for, no matter what kind of politics is involved. Gaurav Sawant is also joining us from our newsroom. Gaurav, as we track every update that comes in from Japan, and as the world really is currently praying for Shinzo Abe, here you have this kind of lowly attacks by Chinese nationals on Weibo, where they're celebrating, they're hailing the attacker.
You know, China's reaction, you're absolutely right, is extremely disappointing and uncalled for. Shinzo Abe was someone who always has stood for a very strong Japan and has stood up to China's bullying tactics, has been a strong advocate of a stronger policy to be adopted. But, you know, the situation right now, we are told, is that Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister of Japan, he's reviewing security. They're looking at, they're assessing the situation on ground. We still do not have the latest as far as Shinzo Abe's condition is concerned. He's been airlifted to hospital and we're waiting for an official word.
Gaurav, just stay on with me. I just want to bring in also Christian Martini. He was with us earlier when this news broke. He's en route, we understand, heading towards Nara on board a train. Christian, if you can hear me, I understand that your connection will be patchy, but any update really that you've been able to pick up as far as the investigation and also very importantly on Mr. Shinzo Abe's condition?
Well, as far as Shinzo Abe conditions are concerned, there is no update. And I'm sure at this point, unless there is any major news about his health conditions, and nothing is going to come out. So it's probably going to be stable, and that's all we know. But on the side of the attacker, that we know something, at least from what came out from the tweeters. So there is a very different shots of the attacker, and a few of the shots they actually frame the guy with some sort of which it looks like a self-made box or anything like you would probably think that he made himself to look like a photographer. I mean, this is just my guess. Anyway, he was trying to hide and conceal this weapon, which some say actually is a self-made weapon. So one would think is that the guy is a former Jietai, so he's a former self-defense, Japanese self-defense guy. So if the hypothesis that it's going on Twitter right now, again, it's a Twitter hypothesis. So let's take it means that he was probably being around with weapons, and he has a training for it. And so what these weapons look, it doesn't look like any weapons we've seen. It looks really weird. And on the one